to another episode of Ladies in Red. I am Phoebe here with Sydney and Kristen, and today our main topic is just kind of going to look at reflection and reflecting back on the past 4 months and all the stuff we've talked about and how far our podcast has really come. So yeah, that's kind of the theme of the episode today.
Yeah, and one of the main things we've talked about are female athletes making headlines throughout the semester, which I feel like I've been able to notice more of it because I didn't necessarily have to go out of my way ever to kind of research that kind of stuff. It would kind of just show up on social media timelines and stuff like that. So it was nice having the opportunity to look more deeper into things like that.
Yeah, I honestly really loved talking about just specific famous women making headlines and even organizations they've built. I remember talking about Billie Jean King and her Women's Sports Foundation. It's just really awesome to research those things and know about them, because I feel like some of those organizations people aren't very aware of, and they just see the athlete as an individual, but they don't see what they do behind the scenes, where they're Billie Jean King's name isn't attached to that foundation. She just did it herself, which is really awesome. And I think one of my favorite episodes too was talking about how athletes have given back to the community and how they've made an impact on their sport, not only their sport, but just those who are less fortunate or trying to spread their sport. So that's one thing I really enjoyed. And honestly, I feel like even though we've shared a lot of this information, I've learned a lot too. It's kind of forced me to just research and follow the news and know what's going on and just study the history of these topics. So that's one thing I really enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. And even so, totally agree with having to research these episodes to try to gain so much knowledge to be able to talk about. It feels really good to be able to put that information out there too, that we are using this platform to educate other people as well. And it makes me happy to know that that information's out there. Like you said about the organizations, they aren't super duper well renowned unless you are kind of looking into the topic or a part of the movement. So I think that it's really important to kind of bring that awareness. And it's been really cool for us to be able to explore all those different organizations and campaigns and promotions and stuff like that that have to do with a women's place in sport.
Yeah, definitely. There were way more organizations, I think, after doing research and stuff like that, finding more of them. And it was just intriguing to see how many athletes are creating organizations now. I feel like there are more and more coming out with things to support other athletes, and we've talked about mental health and stuff like that, especially around the pandemic, which has obviously caused a lot of change in everyday life for a lot of athletes. So it's interesting to see how they can use that in addition to their platform to kind of give back to the community.
Yeah, I honestly loved, we did talk about social media and mental health a lot this semester. And that was one thing I really enjoyed. And I think all of us did a really good job of being vulnerable and open about our own experiences with it. And I think we just did a really good job and kind of made it normalized, especially for female athletes, talking about burnout and how that's a mental health thing, but it's totally normal. Everyone experiences it. Comparison on social media, I think that was really important. And just I think it was one of our last episodes, kind of just the importance of mental health and talking about with Professor Ford how to deal with a mental health condition as an athlete and how to better yourself for your team. And I think that was super important. And I just really liked how we focused on that this semester.
Yeah, and I think that it has been a big push just even since the pandemic to really focus on our mindset and the psychology side of sports, just because we weren't able to physically get out there. Not everyone was able to practice with their team in person to the extent we were before. So the pandemic kind of forced us to take this turn and really dive into the mental health side of athletics. And I think that that is really important in that movement we talked about in previous episodes, of just breaking that stigma of talking about mental illness and comparing it to a physical injury, that a mental injury is very similar when it comes to performing your best in athletics. So just that kind of transformation and putting that emphasis on mental health was, I think, beneficial in that movement to break the stigma and have that conversation be more normal and more available to everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I like that comparison as well too. I think it was really interesting. It definitely would help other athletes view it as that, I think, to make it, like you mentioned, just easier to be able to talk about mental illness and stuff like that. But I also really liked how I remember when Leah O'Brien Amico was on the podcast with us, how she talked about like the support of our other teammates and coaches and how important that is, because they are your friends throughout your 4 years at college, but also like outside of that, once you graduate, they'll always be your support system. So.
Yeah, honestly, I loved that Kristen brought Leah O'Brien Amico on. I think she was like one of my favorite guests just because, she wasn't really affiliated with Dickinson or like, I mean, she obviously plays softball, but she didn't play field hockey. So I had no idea who she was before. And now I'm so happy I got the chance to meet her because I think she offered just such great insight. And she's obviously very well experienced on the field, but I think off the field, she knew a lot about mentorship and how to, be a good mentor for younger female athletes or anything like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed having her on. And I think that's one thing you can kind of take away after sports. I know Kristen and Phoebe are obviously leaving college sports and I will in a year. And I think one major thing is just mentorship and how to be a good role model as a senior, but then also after for female athletes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just the empowerment and the connection that all female athletes have, it's past, present, and future that we talk a lot about. Like we've talked about the history of it. We were lucky enough to be broadcasting during National Women's Month and International Women's and Sports Day and stuff. So we got to dive into the history of not only Dickinson athletics, but also just women's sports in general. So that was really cool to see the past. And then I guess you can consider us as the present, and that there's just going to be so much more upward movement in the future, and just that growth and that, I guess, just that hopefulness that it can only go up from here. We would spend time. I really enjoyed spending time kind of talking about the updates and the progress that women in sports have been making. And then it just is very inspiring and very empowering. And it's exciting that we started this podcast, and hopefully we'll pass it down through semesters to come, and it'll just keep building and become just this great big community of female athletes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like the idea of mentorship goes beyond athletics as well too. Like now that you have gone through 4 years of 4 different teams, you're building kind of like a network for yourself where you can always reach out to the people that were older than you or the people that are younger than you. And it's just kind of nice to have that support system in like the professional workforce and stuff like that, because everyone in your system will definitely be willing to help you. So it's nice to see that evolve from athletics as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of our guests kind of had the same underlying theme where it was, especially during pandemic, working to support and connect even during distant times. And I think that's super inspiring. And I think that's something I don't think a lot of the virtual stuff will go away even after the pandemic, just because I think people have gotten so comfortable, and it's obviously so much easier in some aspects. So I think that's something that learning how to be a mentor virtually and connect with others, especially how we all have connected throughout this podcast, is super important. Something that we can take away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of our episodes have the theme of just that we're so lucky to be athletes and have grown up with these characteristics and learned skills and all this stuff that is just going to help us in the future. And among that is that just that natural support system, like was mentioned, that you're going to have that. You always have that bond. You always have that bond that you went through, that you did those sprints, you worked those early morning practices and those late night games, all the in between, that you went through that together, and that creates some sort of a bond, and then that just helps you in the future to connect with people. It's basically a similar version of just like networking and stuff. Like as I'm looking for jobs, I'm definitely connecting with people that have played field hockey or just sports in general, and that's definitely helped me have that connection, because you have that innate bond, which I just think is really cool. Now reflecting and looking back, that yes, I'm leaving and not going to be physically playing the sport, but I will, one, obviously always have the memories, have that support system, the friends I've made, but then also having that bond that'll never go away, that connection to all other female athletes.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree, especially graduating as well. It's definitely going to be important to maintain contact with like all your teammates that you've been with throughout your 4 years at Dickinson. And athletics have just taught us so much. I feel like teamwork, dedication, communication, all of which, even leadership, are qualities that people that are in the hiring process, like they're looking for people with those qualities. And I think, like, I know I've gotten a lot of messages on like LinkedIn and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, we love hiring athletes just because of your drive and dedication." And like X amount of our employees were former athletes and stuff like that. So it's just interesting to see how like athletes are people who sometimes businesses seek out just because we've learned these qualities from playing sports for so long.
Yeah, definitely. I think just like being a part of a team, and I think teams have grown so much stronger during this time too, community wise and networking. And I know our team has done a lot of networking events with alumni too, which is really exciting. And I think that's one upside to the pandemic. I think a lot of alumni things have made it a lot easier. I know within like the economics department at Dickinson, they've done a lot of networking things, and I think that's made it super easy just being able to log on to Zoom, no one having to come and like meet you or whatever. So I think that's super awesome. And I think that's one upside of the pandemic. I know a lot of episodes we tried to find a positive from the pandemic that's affected sports or, learning environment. I think that's one thing that's really helped with networking is just being able to connect with people, even if it is through Zoom, and them knowing your name and getting to know them, especially for jobs, is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, we've learned and realized, and it's just a fact that sports give us so much other than just that ability and privilege to play on the field or the court or wherever you're competing. You have that also in real life with those connections and the networking and stuff. And it just all over, we are just very lucky to have these takeaways and learn these skills. So I think that also that ties into some of the episodes that we just talked about, not taking anything for granted, that every day we are lucky, and that it's something that's really cool that we're able to do, and we got to this level that we are just super grateful for it, and that you never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, no, and I know my parents have always told me, like, oh, I remember freshman year, they were like, 4 years goes by fast, Kristen, like, take advantage of everything. And I was like, oh, it can't go by like that fast. But now, like, sitting here thinking about how Phoebe and I are graduating in like 2 weeks is crazy to me. And it did really go fast. And I think I took as full advantage of the things Dickinson had to offer. Probably could have done a little bit more with certain areas, but whatever. But yeah, I definitely feel like I capitalized on what Dickinson had.
Yeah, I've definitely been more grateful just getting the chance to practice this semester. Even though we only had one competition this last Saturday, I definitely had to step back and really take it all in because it was 539 days since we last played a game, which was crazy. And I think just being grateful, and even being grateful to be back on campus. Obviously in the fall we were remote, and for me that wasn't fun at all. I mean, I was stuck at home, just kind of like cooped up in my childhood bedroom doing classes and working out at my high school turf. So it's not super fun, but I think, one upside to all of it is just, that gratitude. And that's one thing my team has talked about a lot, is just being grateful to be in the moment, to have the opportunity, not seeing things as like a priority, but seeing them or a requirement, but seeing them as an opportunity. I think that's something I definitely will carry into the summer and next year as a senior too.
Yeah, and I think it's cool to look at just our podcast alone to see how much has changed since we started. We started in January, and we were all at home. We were all in our most likely our childhood bedrooms, and we were kind of doing this to create some content for RDSN and Dickinson Athletics. Just to get that motivation up and keep the hope up. And since we've started, you guys came back early, you were here playing, and then I came back, and now we're all back together. So definitely shows that a lot can happen in a short amount of time. And I think that since starting this, at least I have learned quite a lot too, just with not only information, but also just a feeling of like being grateful and stuff. That I've always felt that way, but just seeing the progress of this podcast and the progress of the world since we've started this just really gives you a different perspective, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely been rather eye-opening, especially talking about like the pandemic and stuff like that. And just like you said, Phoebe, learning more about professional athletes and the organizations that they've built. themselves to help promote like younger generations into getting into sports and stuff like that. It's just been really interesting to see and learn about, and that's something that I definitely have enjoyed while doing this podcast. And I also think it's also helped with like learning how to do podcasts and stuff like that, like communication. Like there's a lot that goes behind it, so that was nice to be able to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I think too, like in the beginning, we would have like so many notes and like almost like a script, like going through this podcast, and it'd be like, okay, like we have to know exactly what we're saying. And now it's kind of more just like a conversation. I think that's something I've really valued coming out of this, because I feel like I can talk it so much better and be more knowledgeable when I speak rather than just like reading off of a screen. And I think that's obviously helped a lot. So I'm grateful in that aspect. And I think this podcast is something I would have never just like started myself or done, but I was happy when Phoebe asked me to do it, just because I think it was, if she wouldn't have, I probably would have never done a project like this ever. And now I could see myself continuing into next year and stuff. So I think that's one thing I'm really grateful for as well.
Yeah, we're excited for you to continue it, Sid. And I think also give us props that we've been doing it online majority of the time. And it's definitely hard to, as we all know, hold a whole like conversation and to keep that flow over Zoom, because it's kind of, you don't want to talk over someone. You have to make sure you kind of sometimes end up in a rotation and a flow and stuff like that, that it can be difficult to banter. But I think that we definitely have definitely grown, and I've seen improvement, like we mentioned, and it's just really cool to that we kind of did this on a whim and then ran with it and have improved and really learned how to do it, I guess, kind of on the fly. Why cut your portions down? When you are hungry, you want something that is filling and delicious, right? Well, Spoon's Cafe believes in cutting the chemicals, not the portions. Located at 57 West Pomfret Street in downtown Carlisle, Spoon's offers great sandwiches, salads, and soups that are tasty, good for you, and will fill you right up. Stop cutting down the size of your lunch and instead get a delicious lunch today at Spoon's Cafe. Open 6 days a week, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Spoons is the perfect spot to enjoy a great tasting lunch today. Well, everyone, we really just want to thank you and give out a lot of gratitude for everyone who tunes in, whether it was one episode or if you were a constant listener to all of our episodes. We appreciate it. And without you, we wouldn't have been able to grow and produce our content. We do this to create the community and to create a conversation. So we are very, very grateful for everyone that has supported us throughout the journey. And we are excited to see where the next chapter of our lives take us, and very excited for the Ladies in Red podcast to also continue with a slight change in hosts as people move through and graduate. So yeah, another big thank you to everyone, and we hope to talk to you soon.